welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. There was a period of time in the early 2000s when one of the most exciting bands in the game was Canada's own Death From Above. Well, that's what they were called at first, but by the time they released their debut album, You're a Woman, I'm a Machine, Sebastien, Grainger and Jesse F. Keeler had lengthened their name to Death From Above 1979 due to a lawsuit. But that didn't detract from that album becoming a ferocious piece of work, with tracks like Romantic Rights, Blood on Our Hands, and Black History Month being considered classic by all fans of the dance punk and alt-rock genre spectrum. In 2006 though, the group split and fans wondered what the future may hold. While Grainger launched his solo career and worked with other bands, Keeler served as one half of electronic duo MSTRKRFT. But in 2011, they were back together, and we've since received 3 new albums from the band, with 2021's Is For Lovers being their last to date. More recently, they've been a little busy touring the world as part of the anniversary of their debut album, playing the record in full in the process. Now this month, they're visiting Australia for the first time in years to bring the stellar tracks to local audiences. To celebrate, I was lucky enough to have a brief chat with Jesse F. Keeler about the record and the band's history, though he quickly abandoned our time constraints and we just kept it pretty casual. Anyway, I strongly urge you to check out Death From Above 1979's You're a Woman, I'm a Machine, grab a ticket to their upcoming tour, and once you're done doing that, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Jesse Keeler, thank you very much for joining this episode of the Trusty Chords podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, for those who might not recognize your name, could you give me a quick few words on, who you are and why we're chatting today?
My name is Jesse Keeler. I am from Canada. I am in a band called Death From Above 1979 that has existed since 2001, and we still exist. And we're coming to Australia in less than a month.
Amazing. Nice and concise. I like that.
For the first time in 10 years, which I learned in the last interview.
Yes, actually, I'll be touching on that in one moment, actually. But I guess before we get to contemporary matters, what I love to do at the start of these podcasts is ask a question about where a love of music first formed. So for you, Jesse, do you have a recollection of your earliest memory of when music first resonated with you?
I actually know the exact moment. I'm 48 years old, which means that when I was a child, we didn't sit in car seats. We just sat wherever. And I was lying down in the back of a station wagon, and my dad was listening to a song called Shake and Finger Pop by Junior Walker and the All-Stars. And I was playing air saxophone along with the saxophone in lying down, going down the highway, probably going 90 miles an hour. And I remember, while I'm telling you this, I remember seeing the little perforations in the headliner in the car, I visual memory and audio of it. And I was like, I think I want to do this. I think I'd like to make music, not be in front of people, not make records, not anything. Just I just want to make music. And I started playing drums when I was 3 years old. It was just, there was drums in the house, and I don't remember playing drums. I don't remember learning, right? Because I don't remember not playing drums. But everyone in my house, my family played an instrument, and different instruments. So it's just sort of I don't know, I didn't think of it as something that involved your identity. It was just a thing that people did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And I think in that moment, I really remember I wanted to make music. I hadn't thought of that before. Playing an instrument and making music, playing an instrument is I don't know, operating a forklift or an excavator. I mean, it's a real talent. I'm pretty damn good with a front end loader, but watch someone who's really good at an excavator. Is it an art form? I don't know. But anyway.
No,
That
I,
was the
I
moment.
understand where you're
That
coming
was
from, though. Yeah.
Shaken Finger Pop by Junior Walker and the All Stars was the song of all the records that my parents played. That was the one I was like, that I want to make music.
So obviously, you've sort of touched on the fact that music was pretty much always there for you. Like if you were learning from a young age, playing drums quite young, and then I guess you've got this thread which goes from Junior Walker to Death from Above 1979, I should say. Make sure the make sure the suffix is back on there. So how did that sort of like how did that lead to that? Like how did you actually end up playing in this band that we know you for today?
Well, the first time I ever played bass was the day I wrote the first three songs for this band. So like I had played drums in bands, and I played guitar. Eventually, when I was about 12, I guess I decided that I wanted to play guitar and got into that. And someone had just left a bass at our house, and I fatefully on September 11th, 2001, decided I would play the bass. And but in my head, when I was doing it, I was imagining that Sebastien and I could make a band out of this with us playing guitar, because I knew him as a guitar player as well. And so I was like, oh, we'll do that. And so I tracked these demos of just drums and bass. And I showed them to him, and he's like, I should sing on this. And that was it. Like, oh, we actually don't need to do the rest of the stuff. Um, and so I think in the beginning, like, I don't know, I don't want to say that I was writing in ignorance, because it's not like I wasn't trying to write songs, or that I didn't understand the importance of bass or whatever. I think it was just that I'm a guitar playing drummer that wrote songs on a bass. And I think what I really liked um, early on was the constraints. Like I really liked trying to accomplish the song with just the bass, just being like, all right, I can't even really play chords because it'll sound like mush. Well, I mean, you can play chords on a bass, but not as distorted as I was doing it. Um, so that like forced how I would play. And then I felt like I've said this, maybe I've said this in interviews before, but I feel like I'm always trying to write horn parts, like, because those parts are like, they're sort of like it's another vocal melody. Um, and so that sort of informed how I was playing. But like, again, I maybe ignorance is the right word, because it's like I can say all this now, but at the time I'm like, oh, why was, what made me think what I was doing was enough? Um, like when I was a much younger man, I didn't appreciate Jackson Pollock's paintings. I thought that they were just paint splatters. Now I understand that this is a guy who was like an accomplished modern artist that then decided to just make paint splatters, really as like oh yeah, you guys want this? Okay, what do you think of this?
Yeah, gotcha.
And knowing that the position that they were in was such that they couldn't say it wasn't art.
Right.
And then just him being a drunk and just pushing that forward. But like I love, I love the Andy Warhol soup can, not because it's a great piece. I've looked at it like this far away. I'm kind
Mm.
of so close so you can see the pencil lines that were made. But what I love about it is that it, like he did it, and no one else had done it. And then you say this is art. It's like the Marshall McLuhan thing, that art is whatever you can get away with. Um, Not to say that this band is me trying to get away with it, but it's sort of like there's like a certain hubris in saying this is a song, it's done, and you could say that at any point. You know what I mean? Like, well, I mean, like a classical composer could say this is enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like wherever you decide that it's done, it's done. I guess it's the same with painting or sculpting or whatever else. Um, and so that sort of like the moment that Sebastian and I both felt like this was enough. What we were doing was enough. Um, that uh, Pollock-esque hubris maybe came out in us, and we sort of become militant about, no, this is enough. Like we don't need anything else. So now I have something to prove the whole time, because I'm always working on proving my initial thesis that having a bunch of instruments play in unison is pointless if you can just get one to do it and have it sound as big as a bunch of instruments, essentially.
I guess that actually sort of leads into my next question there, because the upcoming tour that you guys have, and I believe I saw it is your first one in 14 years, actually, which is just insane to think about. But you're touring,
Down there.
yeah. I think the last time was like Park Life Festival in 2011, from what I saw.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes total sense, because I had a child that wasn't alive. My second child hadn't been born, and I was down there. Ah.
yeah. See, I'm here with all the hot gossip. That's not what I'm trying to
No,
say. The
I
information is what I'm
appreciate it.
looking for. Yeah,
We have a hard time. I have a hard time remember this. It just becomes like, I know it's a cliche to say it becomes a blur, but it all just sort of becomes like one large thing
yeah.
with these like still image memories.
I understand. Yeah,
Like I have a still image memory of playing that Parklife Festival, and I don't remember which of the cities it was in, but there was a guy in a wheelchair that the crowd put up, and he was crowd surfing around, sitting in his wheelchair. I have that very burned into my mind, remembering that. Uh, I don't remember. I don't remember much else.
well, I mean that's a pretty good image to have in your mind. I mean, it's very representative of the Australian crowds, isn't it? Just making sure that everyone is getting up there, up amongst it.
Yeah,
But I mean, yeah, this is the first tour you guys have had in 14 years in Australia, and touring in support of the 20th anniversary of You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. So I feel like like a lot of people, consider that record to be a little bit of a classic. But did you actually ever foresee? Thank you very much for the for the people listening. You're just showing me it was the gold record. I'm assuming of the.
that's yeah. That was the first one. That's I refer to that as my diploma.
Well, the moment that you actually, graduated, I guess we could use that analogy. Um, when you guys were actually making this album, did you ever, in any like a million years, foresee it becoming so popular and well regarded, at least by those whose opinions matter?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like I'd made a lot of records before in other bands. I toured all over North America and in Europe too, in hardcore bands. I'd done lots of other stuff. Um, and initially, like that was the scene that we existed in over here. Uh, and yeah, I don't know. I've just always just. I mean, it sounds so cheesy. I've just always tried to do my best and play the best I can, make things that I'm happy with. Um, I'm never fully satisfied, but occasionally there'll be moments where I'm like, oh, that was actually really good. I am very, very pleased with that. But general, just like rolling mild dissatisfaction, always inspiring me to keep doing something else, keep going forward or thinking forward. And when we made that record, there was a lot of times while making it where I was like, I don't know if we can. I don't know if like trying to polish this up is the right move. Like maybe we just continue exactly where we are. And in hindsight, listening to that record, it's not by any means like a clean or pop sounding record. But that
That's
was
part of the charm, isn't it?
but that's we were aiming at making like the most pro sounding record we could, and that you know bounded by just you know not knowing how, not actually knowing what's involved or how to do that, or um but just wanting to try to make something that was uh, that was good, and I don't mean good as in like um, with merit, but I mean just like of the quality of the like big band stuff that I'd heard that I also didn't like. I remember watching. We had like our version of MTV in Canada was called Much Music, and back when those channels used to play videos and not just reality TV shows or whatever nonsense they do. Um, Before YouTube, that they, I remember watching some band. I don't remember what it was, but they were this video, and I remember just thinking, this is so lame. Why? This is garbage. But then instead of like that thought was immediately followed with a sense of like conviction. Like, don't just think that, that's not enough. You can't just think everything sucks and not throw your hat in the ring.
Yeah.
And then that involved a learning curve, obviously. We didn't know anything. I mean, the first time a record label asked us to come and meet with them, we fucking wore suits.
I
Seb,
truly, I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't imagine either of you guys wearing
Seb,
suits.
Seb wore the suit that he had worn to his high school graduation because the only one he had. I
Right.
had like some jacket that I'd got at a secondhand store for $5. Like, I don't know. We don't know what the hell to do. I don't know what's involved. We showed up there looking like okay, dime store accountants. Like we had no clue. Um, but yeah, the learning curve was long. Um, I don't even know if I'm answering your question.
Oh no, it's totally fine. It's always great to have these sort of insights, like this. 20 or 21 years down the line now, like when you look back on this album, do you view it as emblematic of who you are musically now, or do you look back on it as a formative part of your career, or a totally different way?
It's formative in the sense that it certainly it opened the door to everything that's followed.
Mm.
Um, and the biggest shift was like I think when we first started and the music business became interested in us because it wasn't really something we pursued. Um, but as they became interested in us, um, there was always that sense of trying to justify what we were doing, and to anyone to anyone who's accustomed to the world the way it is now in music, like everywhere we would go, people would say, do you need a guitar player? I could play guitar for you. I could do this, And I'm talking even the record label people like, so you guys going to add anything to this record? Like while we're making that one, they're like, so that's it? Are you going to add anything more to this record? It's like, uh, and then that's when you have to suddenly, that arrogance that I spoke about before,
Mm.
where you have to say like, no, this is it.
Yeah.
And so in those moments, you would have to sort of, I mean, then using your words, you have to argue for your concept. And we had to do that all the time. And then I think we got good at being able to rationalize it. And then we didn't have to do it anymore because the idea had proven itself. So that was the record that by the end of that record, having gone around like the cycle for however, like whatever couple of years that we were after it had come out, by the end of that, no one ever asked to play guitar again. Uh, the record labels stopped asking for us to change, and we didn't have to defend it. And then from that point on, really, it was super helpful in a sense that when Seb and I be writing together, because we're a 2-person band, so it can't be a democracy. We have to just agree. You know what I mean? Um, and so we became good at explaining to each other why we thought something was good in a song, or like why we should do this or we shouldn't do that. And like we really learned how to verbalize those ideas, first to other people, but then to each other in the writing process. And now, after so many years and so many instances of going through that, like we barely have to explain anything to each other. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's like it, but it was the beginning of us having proven our little concept, I guess, to whatever extent it's been proven. I guess the fact that we're talking now about it 21 years later.
Yeah, it's obviously paid off somewhat, hasn't it? I mean, actually, I mean, just sort of also hearing you sort of mention about like the idea of like, the band not being a democracy, it's the two of you. So I like only very recently, I've actually started managing a two-piece band here in Australia. And just to sort of hear how they sort of like interact with each other and to sort of be like, just seeing the decision-making process, because I'm also in a band, which is a four-piece band. If you have a decision, it's like, okay, now you need to get three other people on side. But it's just
Yeah,
the idea of having like another person as your sounding board, and then over time it becomes much more of an instinctual thing, doesn't it? Where you're able to sort of say,
yeah,
"Oh, Sebastien, you know where I'm going with this sort of thing." And yeah, I can. I feel like I'm starting to ramble now, but yeah, what I'm trying to
yeah.
say is I
No, but
understand
it's
where you're
all
coming
it's
from.
it's like when if you're in a relationship with somebody for a long time, you can you could be in a situation and both look at each other, and you don't have to explain.
Totally.
You both know exactly what you've just seen and what you're both thinking and how you're
Of
both going to
course.
laugh about it later.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but that happens that that happening while writing and while playing is I mean, it's something Seb and I talk about, how this is our life's work.
Mm.
I'm 48 years old. I'm not going to start a new band that is going to make seminal records that people talk about in 20 years. Um, not, I guess I could, but I'm also a beef cattle farmer now. So out the window, there's a bunch of whole mess of cows out there. There's chickens out that on the other side. I'm at my farm. I'm 100 miles away from the city. Um, I have four children. I'm not starting it again. And like this is our life's work, and uh, that's a it's a weird thing to think about. But we when we're making stuff up or just like playing around with some idea during a sound check spontaneously, we'll change together, like from improvised piece into next improvised section together. And afterwards, some guys that work for us will be like, "What song is that?" And I'm like, "It's nothing. We're just fucking making it up right now." And it's like, "Oh, that's so crazy." Well, it crazy when we've been doing this for such a long time, and there's like I don't know, brain waves are syncing up. It's beyond even needing to sometimes have any sort of like where I hear what he's about to do. He hears where I'm headed.
It's just this
That's
innate understanding, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. And I also guess like you mentioned the idea of it being your life's work as well. The band this is sorry, the band that is. But looking back on this album from 21 years ago, I mean the band's been going what 24 years, that's half your life and everything.
Yeah.
Like looking back on this album, how has it felt revisiting it like on these like recent tour dates that you've done? Because I know, for a while before the breakup it was the only album that you had, but since then there's been
Mhm.
other records which do get a look in at the end of the set. But how has it felt replaying the album and going back to this time?
Um Mostly uh like because of the entire the feeling from the crowd is different, because we're not I don't have to they know the songs when we've played the first two notes. Or I don't have to convince you that this is good. So that is so dramatically different from 20 years ago when we're like presenting new ideas. Now we're giving you the thing you've asked for. That's a very cool feeling. But the part about it that is more interesting for us is that when you have this thing that you've done that a long time ago that people now still care about, there's in you, in me, there was a question of, well, can I still do that? Can I do that any better? Like, because I think I'm a much better player. I'm confident that I'm technically a lot better at doing that thing now. But will that make, if I play this record, is it going to be at least as good, or am I going to be more satisfied with how I play? Which I am. Um, it's it keeps it. It's like not nostalgic for us. There's none of that. It's more like it keeps it moves all those songs into a place for us emotionally that I think is like similar to everything that we continue to make or have made since then. Like it has kept it from being old for us anyway. Um, and like at the end of this run in Australia, we're not going to do it anymore. So this is going to be the last times of us playing that record all the way through. Because we have so many other songs we'd like to play as well. It's very enjoyable to you know make new set lists, play songs that we haven't played in a little while, play around with it. Um, and just like, it's, I like looking forward. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like it's a nice thing to have the opportunity to, to have it like a do over every day,
Mm.
and it's not that there's things about the album that disappoint me. There's like mixing choices that I made. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Um, that I, no one, if I didn't tell anyone what specifically was bothering me about it, they would notice, and maybe I compensated for it at the time. But there's things that I did where I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that. Um, but it's nice to be able to. I'll give you a very concrete example, like when we were recording Blood on Our Hands. That I wrote that song in the studio, and then when we went to play it, because of the way we had written it, it was always felt really disjointed to us when we were performing it, and that is completely gone now. And I think really just because of Seb's singing and drumming ability and my playing ability, it's just like the physical limitations aren't there anymore. And now we get to play it and enjoy it, which is sort of like it's more uh, as a band, it's more like the record than we ever were at the time.
Yeah,
Um,
okay, that makes sense.
like having the opportunity to do that, and even just like to be able to play the songs and have them be um, a physical. I don't want to say it's not a joy to do it, but just to not have to not be like fighting against our own bodies to be able to do it. We used to just push ourselves as hard as we could, but that's partially just for lack of having the technique developed, which comes with decades of doing it over and over again. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's gratifying to be able to do it and have it come off the way we'd wanted it to from the beginning, and also at the same time to be able to do it for crowds that are excited about it rather than having never heard any of it, you know. That all of that stuff is, yeah, it's very fun. But we've been a super fortunate band. Like, uh, when it comes to our fans, they've been amazing all this time, and I don't know how many people get the opportunity to cross the ocean to play songs they wrote 22 years ago
True. Yeah. It's a
for
rare
people who
opportunity.
want for people who want to hear them. I think about how many bands we opened for that those people don't even make music anymore. You know, and here we are. So I have that sense of like, I don't know. I just feel very grateful while doing it as well.
Absolutely. And I guess before I get onto the sort of the main section or the final section of the podcast, you mentioned like, for example, like later material, and you also mentioned Andy Warhol earlier. So that actually leads me into one thing I'm never able to say to almost anyone because I don't really know many Death from Above 1979 fans. So you might appreciate this, but I do want to say the artwork to the Virgin single has made me so uncomfortable throughout the last 14 years now. And every time I listen to that song, I see that artwork come up in some way, and in my mind it comes up, and I just think, I'm getting a visceral reaction from music here. So, mission accomplished.
Uh,
But of
well,
course, no one that I know could ever appreciate that comment because no one knows what the hell I'm talking about when I mention that.
um, we had Seb and I had a roommate, this guy named Dennis, who's an artist, and when we and this was like back in the day, and so when we were getting ready to make the artwork for that record, we're like, "Hey, Dennis, could you make art for every one of the songs on the record?" And he's like, "Yeah, no problem." And so he cranked out all that. Whatever he gave us, we accepted, and that was it. And so I don't know why he thought that a bloody banana was going to be the right thing to do.
I
But
mean,
then, of
it
course,
serves the song well, unfortunately. But yeah, I still
no,
remember the visceral reaction I had the first time I saw that, and I just thought, look, mission
I mean,
accomplished. But yeah,
it's funny because it's so literal when the song is really just about being a child.
I know.
It's not it's not about having sex. It's about being a kid and not thinking about all of that,
Yeah.
and not like that period of your life where those feelings don't command your behavior.
I guess
And
in hindsight, it probably would have been better if he had the context rather than just the title, right?
I mean, w- I'm trying to imagine an image to that would convey what I just said, and I think that they might end up worse.
Great to think, yeah.
How do you have an artwork of childhood innocence?
Yeah, true. Oh, well, I mean, I guess, there but for the grace of God go the artwork for that album, right?
Ah,
Well,
so the banana's fine.
Well, I guess that serves as a nice little segue for me to get down to the portion of the podcast in which its namesake is derived. So, Trusty Chord sees me follow the 1, 3, and 5 structure of standard chord, ask you about one artist that's impacted you, 3 albums that have been influential, and 5 songs you can always turn to. And I always love the idea of these coming right off the cuff with very little forewarning. So, my first question for you here, Jesse, who is one artist, musical artist that is, who has inspired you the most, whether it be personally or creatively?
David Bowie.
Amazing.
David Bowie, it's easy because uh, to even say that you're a fan of his is like a weird thing, right? It's like, oh, really? Do you love Tin Machine? Do you really love his drum and bass records? Do you love like the later stuff? Is that, or do you love the ambient side of Heroes where there's no singing? Or like, what is it? Do you love when he was a singer songwriter playing acoustic guitar? Like, which do you like, the funk soul David Bowie that had Luther Vandross singing backups? Like, which one? But we have the luxury of from time that we can just look back and see a whole career when really, like, you were watching someone experiment and play around with ideas and not be concerned with whether or not the fans came with him. I mean, I know that people were so disappointed when he stopped being glam and suddenly showed up with a suit and slick back hair and a massive drug problem, and and totally changed field. But then, like, or Let's Dance Bowie, like, is that uh ground control to Major Tom Bowie? Like, I really like that. Uh and and he was I feel like any interview I've ever seen of him, he had the perspective of a man standing on a chair in a crowd where everyone's standing on the ground. Like, he was always, everything was sort of like looking down on stuff, not, you know, not so here. He was always kind of there. I'm sorry for the people who are listening to the audio version. I have my hand over my head and I'm leaning back.
Thank you for the narration there. That is definitely useful.
But yeah, that would, for sure.
Yeah.
He's he's easy. It's hard to think of an artist that is just across the board, you know, satisfying.
He's just so multifaceted in everything that he did, and he did it all so well as well. Well, my next question for you here, what are the three albums that have impacted you the most? This could just be albums you're always throwing on, or something that integral to your musical evolution.
Um, there was a band from Boulder, Colorado called Angel Hair, and they had one album called Insect Mortality. And that record, when I heard it and got it the first, like, I guess I was in the, whenever it came out in mid 90s, I was so blown away by it. Nothing sounded like it before. The description that was given to me by the guy in the record shop was completely wrong. And records were $5 back then, so it wasn't a huge commitment, and it looked cool. But I was blown away. And like, for anyone who listens to this record, if you have a stereo control, if you listen to just the left side and then just the right side, it's like the two guitar players are playing different songs, but it but together it was all right. um but it was just like this feeling that was, I don't know, time wise it didn't fit. It was like there's like a bit of like gothness to it, but without it being there at all. Just sort of like that, the way the notes sounded and the noisiness of it and the feel. I just remember hearing that whenever I got that record and just being like, "Whoa, that is the thing. I love that thing." Um,
I feel like I've heard of Angel Hair before. I'm not even sure if I could be thinking of the right album, but is that the one that had the song Stigmata Mater or something?
song. Yeah, that's that's the second song on side A. The first song is Witch Hunt Scene from Star Trek.
I always love someone who's able to say, "Oh, it's a second song on side A or side B or something." So it's clearly an album that has resonated with you plenty. Um, but
Oh yeah.
what would the second album be for you?
Um, I'm trying not to. Well, the second record that was probably being honest, most influential on me was the Infamous by Mobb Deep, because at the time, before music, um, it very much sounded like the world that I was living in, and I I could that whole record is in my head in a way that nothing I ever learned in school is in my head, and I can go back and listen to it and I still feel the same way all the time. Something my wife and we were talking about earlier today actually was like how some people cul-de-sacs that you can think of, like Public Enemy.
Mhm.
I would say is a musical cul-de-sac because nothing ever sounded like Public Enemy afterwards, and it
Right.
doesn't even
Yes.
sound like anyone borrows from it. But at the time, it was huge, and then just sort of it's just gone. And for me, I don't know. I was trying to think, is there anything like that for that I really like? But I don't, not long term. Um, but yeah, the infamous by Mob Deep, and also like as I've become older, I realized that I learned a lot about jazz from
Mm.
that record. Like because we're talking about owning a record and looking at it and reading the back and reading all the samples, and being like, oh, what's that? I want to hear that record. Oh wow, this. Hey, I like Chick Corea now. I'd never, you know what I mean?
Of
Like
course, yeah.
finding out about all this other music because of it. Um, and knowing that these guys were like the same age as me. Um, I don't know. It just, and that they'd made this awesome thing. And, uh, I don't know, how I felt about the world. I felt very reflected from them and that record in a way that nothing else outside of punk rock was. And then, was to think of a third record, it would be Fragile by Yes, um, which I realize that now I've gone so dramatically different. But
Oh,
like
that's fine.
Fragile, uh, I know that for them it was almost like a pop record in that it had singles that weren't 30 minutes long, but or however long Close to the Edge is. Uh, but I listened to that record so much and I was completely blown away thinking like these guys are 22 years old and they made this. Like these are takes. They wrote these songs. And I think I was so into the playing. Like I still I mean the day Chris Squire from Yes died was the day that Seb and I played Glastonbury Festival, and as luck would have it, as we were on the tour bus heading into the Glastonbury grounds, we were listening to Close to the Edge by Yes, and I was standing on the bus playing along air bass with this song. And I think Yes is Chris Squire's bass playing and like the sound of the round wound Rickenbacker, slightly distorted, really singing.
Mm.
Like it's just those are singing parts. They're not. They're like it's not a bass line. It's not bound by what a bass is supposed to do. Um, like Larry Graham from uh, Sly Stone was sound wise as influential on me, but the playing wasn't the same. Um, but and also that those interlude songs on Fragile, where each band member made one song up. Like there's really only four. There's four proper songs on the record, but then in between each of them made one song. And just seeing their like different creativity and whatever else. I don't know. Like I still put that record on. Um, I I have I have at least 6 copies of the vinyl because it's one of those records that every time I see an old copy, I buy it.
Yeah.
Um,
I certainly
so
understand that passion. Yeah. I certainly
um,
understand
I have a lot of those. And if I wait, did you say this is the three part?
this is
This
a
is the
three.
three part of our
It is, but I
okay.
mean, if by any means you want to have an honorable mention or anything like that, I won't complain.
No, no, no. I'll leave it. I'll
All
leave
right,
it.
leave it
Okay.
there. Be a,
I almost added the Pleasure Principle by Gary Newman, but that doesn't fit the bounds of your question because I don't go back to it very often.
That's fair. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's my podcast. I make the damn rules. If you want to throw that one in there, I'm happy to throw it in there. Make it a minor. No, I'm forgetting my chord theory. But look, lastly, I'd love to know the 5 songs you can always turn to, whether it be for comfort, for excitement, anything at all. Your 5 trusty songs, and the little exhale then indicates this could be a tough question.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I have them. I'm not sure if I have them, and I mean that. I mean that genuinely, not as an answer to to get out of the answer. Um, because every time I think everything I can think of, I I can't say for certain that I don't at times not want to hear it, or like I don't know if there's anything that is consistently like I'll always go to it. I mean, there's some "Feeling Better" by Hank Williams Jr. is really great, but it's a song about going out on the road again. And so before going on a tour, it feels a lot better than afterwards or
Of course,
during.
yeah, yeah, makes sense.
um, yeah, I mean, uh, I always like Omaha by Waylon Jennings. I don't know why it is that Omaha became like the soundtrack of this band for a little while, where we're just always putting it on. It seemed like really all the time. To the point where we even played a show in Omaha just because we're like, well, we gotta go to Omaha because we listen to that damn song so much. Um, the other the other songs, um, Sam's Boogie by Magic Sam. It's this instrumental. It's sort of known as one of the most difficult things on guitar to play ever, but it just sounds he makes it sound effortless, and he died not long after that record, so there's not really much else. But that song, yeah, actually, I could listen to that a billion times. I never get bored of it. Um, very very important to me is also "Rollin' and Tumblin'" by Elmore James. Like for me, that song is audio Viagra and speed. Like we have that on our play. We have both of those songs on our before we go on playlist because I hear that shit when I'm backstage, and then even if I didn't feel like playing, now I do.
Yeah,
Now I
right.
feel like doing. Now I feel like doing it, and yeah, I'll never get bored of those two. Um, I guess I'm up to four.
That's four. Yeah, there's one
Yes.
more. I mean, for someone who was having trouble thinking of any, you've done really well.
Yeah, well, you know what it is. It's because uh, it's so it's so broad. There's so much.
Of course.
There's so much space. Um, the song "I Love Music" by Ahmad Jamal, and I know he's got multiple recordings of it, but I think they're all good. In the record "Jamal Plays Jamal," that I mean, it's just the one chord progression over and over again with variations. But that song, actually telling you the name of the song, makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up a little bit because I hear that. I will never get bored of that song. I've definitely driven it into the head of everyone that has to listen to what I'm listening to.
Well, I can certainly
Um,
say I'm very eager to actually like delve into these songs that you mentioned. I mean, a couple of them I am aware of, a couple of them are completely new to me, and I always love hearing what makes folks like yourself tick. So I love a few good well, as you said before, the equivalent of what audio Viagra and speed. So
you know what? Can I actually? I do have one. There is one other
mm,
honorable mention album that I think I will love it forever. It's just it's weird for me to think about because it's not that old, but ever since I first heard it, I don't think I've listened to anything more. Um, there was a band from uh, I think no, they weren't from Seattle. I think they were from Olympia. I don't believe they're still around. They're called Naomi Punk, and it's just two guitars and a drummer. And the first record is called "The Spell." I think it's called "The Spell." Yes. Um, I, I, I think, yeah, that's probably the record I've listened to the most in the last decade. Um, they put out, they had another record after that called "Television Man" that was really great. And then they don't have any social media. They never did. But The Spell, that record is it's crazy.
Sorry, I was gonna say, what was it? Was it the spell or the feeling?
The feeling.
The feeling.
Yeah, The
Yeah.
Spell is one of the songs on
Yeah.
that record. The Feeling is also an incredible song on that record. Actually, every single song on that record is incredible. Every interlude is incredible. The record is perfect. It's mixed perfect. They play the way the drummer plays is so bizarre. Nobody plays like that guy. He plays along with the strumming of the guitars
Oh wow. Okay.
exclusively the whole time. When you hear it, you'll be like, "Oh, this is I haven't felt this."
Okay.
And um they came to Toronto one time and I was on fucking tour and I couldn't go. And I don't know anyone that went. It's even more disappointing. um, the Feeling, God damn, I can't
Okay.
believe it. That record is perfect. And I every once in a while I'll just put it on and I'll listen to it all the way through and it'll loop and I won't notice. You know, like uh yeah, I'm pretty sure there was one that the tour we did opening for the Deftones. I think I listened to that record all the way through at least once a day, every single day in my private time. Like just
Well, I think I may need to be listening to that album as soon as we hang up this call because actually, ironically enough, when we actually started this call, I was in the middle of listening to the end of Death from Above's first album. So once I finish off "Sexy Results," I'll go right into the feeling.
hey, maybe I should just add
Yeah,
that whatever that last show, I think the last show of that tour is in Sydney. Is it in Sydney? I think so.
I think. Just trying to look.
When we play Sexy Results at that show, that's the last time we're ever playing that song. That is it. We we had to learn how to play that song to do this tour because we'd never played it because it was never a song. The whole reason why that song was on the record was because we finished the record and then the record label's like the contract says it has to be this long to count as the record. So I made that song in the middle of the night shortly before we had to submit the album. And Seb did the vocals in our friend's basement at his studio. And then we're like, all right, it's done. And I mean, Sexy Results, the phrase is from a Simpsons
I
episode.
knew it. I always thought it was from The Simpsons.
It's from the episode when Mo becomes a soap opera star
Yeah.
and Homer runs in with the script. Yeah, with Sexy Results. Like I mean, that's
Every time that song comes up, I say it in that tone. I've always thought, surely it's from that,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
it's a fucking joke. And so in over the last decades, people would ask us to play that song all the time, and we would always be like, "It's not a fucking song. It's not a real song. We've never actually played it. Like we just made it up in the studio and said." Here you go. And if you look at this, if you had the CD of the record, it's like whatever, 40 minutes and 1 second or something like that. Like the
Mm.
total runtime is exactly what they needed, or whatever it was. It might have been 35. I can't remember whatever the time they told us we needed it, we made it exactly that. So we had to like figure out how to play the song to do this tour. And I don't I don't dislike doing it, but every time I do it, I'm closer to not having to do it anymore.
Amazing. Well, look, I can definitely say I like a lot of other folks are definitely glad you've decided to, take one for the team and put it in the set list. But I can also understand the joy of finally putting it behind you.
But yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, look, I suppose I should say, thank you so much, Jesse, for your time today and for joining this Trusty Chords podcast. It's been a true pleasure to have you on board.
Happy to be here, man.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you listened to this episode and enjoyed it, I would really appreciate it if you were able to take a few minutes to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. As always, there is no obligation, but I am forever grateful if you do. As always, I'm also over on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word, and I've also got a blog on my website, which is tylerjenke.com, that's TYLERJENKE, and it's /Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. Over on that blog, you can find all of the artists, albums, and songs chosen by my guests each week, along with a nice little Spotify playlist for your listening pleasure. You can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform where you can throw me a few dollars to keep this podcast running if you feel so inclined. For those listening closely, you might realize that my voice is a little bit rough this week, which means that if you donate any money via the Buy Me a Coffee platform, you're actually going to be helping to fund my cold medicine addiction this week. Lastly, I need to thank Jesse F. Keeler for spending time with me for the podcast, and also to Chris Marek from Marek Media for helping to organize it as well. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.